I'm Kate. I'm a volunteer with Washington County Democrats, and I had the opportunity to interview Beach Peace, who is the candidate that we have endorsed for Hillsboro's mayoral race. We had a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something.
Well, let's get started.
Great, sounds
Yeah,
good.
I'm really excited to talk to you, Beach, and
Thanks.
just learn. Yeah,
Likewise.
yeah, awesome. I'm yeah, eager to hear about what made you decide to run for mayor. So let's start with that. So two
Yeah.
successful terms in city council. So
Yeah.
yeah, what made you decide to run for mayor, and what about that change is most exciting to you?
Sure. So there are a couple of factors. So one of the reasons I decided to run for mayor was the window. The window opened up where Mayor Calloway was terming out, and I happened to be in my second term. And also just the opportunity to, could I do this? Is it possible? And then I am used to being an outward facing leader. And what I mean by that is, I'm a CEO of an organization. I've led other organizations where you have some internal work, but then you're mostly facing outward to bring resources into that organization. And
Mhm.
so that's what I'm most excited about transitioning from city council to mayor, is that I'll still be doing internal work for
Mhm.
the city, but then I get to do some outward facing work with our national reps, right? Our US
Yeah.
congressmen and representatives and senators, and represent Hillsboro in an outward facing way. I think I'm good at it. I've had experience with it, and I'd like to take that to the next level. So I'm really excited about that. That's one of the things I'm excited about.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I think that's a good segue into my next question, which is just how does your background, do you think, how has it prepared you to serve as mayor? Because especially as someone from the nonprofit sector, you wear a lot of hats in the nonprofit
Oh,
sector, but
yeah.
you're also a veteran, you're also in office currently. So yeah, what skills and experiences do you think you bring to the table?
Yeah, I like that question because I get to highlight the fact that I've been in four different sectors. I've been in the military, I've been in corporate, I've been in what I like to call social impact instead of
Mm,
nonprofit, because social impact says what we do and nonprofit says what we don't do.
love that. Love that.
So I've been in military, corporate, and social impact, and also in government. And I bring all of that experience, all of those years of experiences to the position as counselor and then to hopefully as mayor.
Mhm.
And, there are a lot of lessons that come from that, but basically collaboration and relationships get it done. And I've had decades of experience with that. And I think I'm pretty good at it. So I hope to bring that to the position of mayor. And I think my background has set me up for success there as well.
That is really cool. And I like the way that you articulated that well, because like almost any sector that somebody can think to work in, you have worked in. So that is a lot of really, it's a really cool background to bring to that role.
Yeah, it's helped
Cool perspective.
it's helped me out in decision making, and just talking to people, collaborating and understanding and seeking out what motivates them, what's important to them.
Gotcha.
You find that out, you usually get to a really good decision.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
Can I ask you some policy questions?
sure. Yeah,
Cool. First one is about housing. Because you've been on Hillsboro's Planning Commission
I
for
have. Yeah,
how long now? How long have you been on that?
I served on the planning commission for a year,
Got it.
and during part of that time, I was running for council. So,
Got it. Okay. Um, Knowing that you've been on that commission, we know that you are committed to helping find solutions for affordable housing and addressing the houselessness crisis. So, in your time with that commission and on city council, what would you say that you've learned, and how can you apply that moving forward in this new role?
well, I've learned a lot, but I have also been able to go back to practices that I learned years ago, and even in my bachelor's degree and my master's degree.
Mhm.
Um, and we're talking about basic supply and demand, right? We have a low inventory of housing in Hillsboro, and frankly, across the country. Our issue in Hillsboro is not isolated. And
Mhm.
so understanding, when you have more units or more dwellings on the market, that will help bring down the price. And so working to increase that supply, because then the demand isn't as high, that closes that gap between supply and demand, which then closes the price. But then there's also still the need for affordable housing. And
Mhm.
while I was on planning commission, excuse me, there's still the need for affordable housing, workforce housing, all sorts of housing. I
Right.
like to call it a cheesecake factory menu of housing. We want all the opportunities there. But when we're talking specifically about affordable housing, I'm really proud of the work that I've done on council, and frankly, that the whole council has done. I don't, it's all me.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that we have supported affordable housing going up and in collaboration with Bienestar. And so
Pianist.
Bienestar is a national, or I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. You're just about to explain my question. I was going to
Yeah.
ask what that was.
So what I'm most proud of is some of the affordable housing units that we've put up. And for example, we've partnered with an organization called Bienestar. Bienestar means well-being, which I just love.
Uh,
And they are a nonprofit or social impact organization that specializes in building affordable housing. And so we supported them by providing them land, giving it to them for free. And so they could put up 150 units of multi-generational housing that are culturally responsive to people who need it. And the only people that can live in there are people that live at 80%, 60%, and 30% of AMI or average median income. And so that's just one example of some affordable housing units we've gotten up. They exist now. And
yeah.
so to see it go from a field to units where I see kids and families going into their homes, it's a really special thing for me to see, and I'm just so happy for the families. We've also partnered with Hacienda CDC. They're going to build a project called the Dolores, which is going to have, I believe, 250 units of affordable housing in Hillsboro. Yeah. And so we're really excited about that too. So does that solve the problem like that? No, but it helps alleviate some of the issues and get people into homes and dwellings.
That's incredible. And that has to fill your cup in a big way, as
Oh
well as the
man.
other folks on that commission too.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned when, to see it, to see the project with Vienna Star go up, and that's called Nueva Esperanza, so New Hope, right? Which is just like perfect, right? Um,
Yeah.
so we saw that go from a field to units. And I remember I was driving over to the Hidden Creek Community Center, and the last time I had seen Nueva Esperanza, it was almost done, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm driving over to this nearby community center, and I saw people with boxes moving in.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. That just
And
gave me goosebumps. Oh my goodness.
yeah. And so just to remember, the discussions and the deliberation and the conversations and then the vote and then time and construction and
Yeah.
time passes. And then I'm driving over there and I see people moving in with boxes. And I kind of, yeah, I got emotional a little bit in the car there.
Oh, I feel like how could you not after spending that much
Yeah,
time
right.
and it's something that everybody needs, the like affordable housing. It's a scary problem to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bet it feels incredible to watch all that work pay off.
Yeah, it
So
was great. And
yeah.
I'm also proud of the type of units we put in.
Mhm.
So we could have put in more units, but they would have been studio apartments.
Mhm.
Instead, we worked with Bienestar to understand, what do your families want? And we heard multi-generational housing. We wanted mom, dad, kids, abuela, abuelo, grandfather, grandfather, grandmother,
Mhm.
to be able to be in the homes with them. And they're filling up. I mean, there's a wait list.
That's
So
incredible.
I'm not stoked that there's a wait list, but the fact that it filled,
Yeah.
right? And that, people are taking advantage of it and are really appreciative of the multi-generational housing.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was multi-generational housing too.
Yeah,
And that's incredible. What a really cool thing to be able to offer.
I'm
And
really excited about that one.
yeah.
Hmm.
So with affordable housing, folks also need to be paid a living wage to be able to
Yes,
afford to
yeah.
live in that housing. So I'd love to hear more. I know that you've put some efforts in already about better paying jobs, supporting better paying jobs for Hillsborough residents. So can you talk a little bit about that and what you hope to achieve as mayor?
Yeah, well, I want to get more jobs that provide those living wages, if not more. And
Mhm.
that is again goes to collaboration with some of our tech companies, with some of our small businesses, to
Mhm.
understand what do they need, right? And how can we get folks trained up? And it also is in partnership with the Hillsborough School District.
Mhm.
They have several paths to employment, and I should say career paths, that allow kids to explore while they're still in school. I mean, aviation, medicine, tech, et cetera. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. And we are focused on workforce development. We have staff members that's their sole job, is to make sure that we are engaging in collaboration with the private sector, with the public sector, with HSD, Hillsboro School District, to make sure that we have what those kids need in order to graduate and get a job, or go to college and get a job. Either way, we want them to be able to be employed with a living wage job. And I think a great example of that is the Quick Start program, where we've worked with the city of Hillsboro has helped fund, along with Intel and along with PCC, a 2-week program that allows people to go to school for the 2 weeks to learn how to work in a fab.
Okay.
Um, and so they are paid during those 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So they have help with childcare or whatever they need. So they're getting paid. They go to the 2 weeks, and at the end of it, the top graduates can get picked up by Intel. And then the people that maybe didn't do as well, but maybe needed a little extra help, they can get picked up by another tech organization.
Okay.
And so they're going from, let's say, $10, $15 an hour jobs to $65,000 a year salaries, like
That's
that.
amazing.
Yeah, and
What a
so
cool program.
I'm really proud of that work that the city has done. I went to one of the graduations of the Quick Start program, and they were people in tears.
Oh
They
man.
were offered jobs, they were in tears, and I was so happy for them.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. It's because it's a rough job market out
it
there
is.
right
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
I work in staffing, and
Oh,
there's
yeah,
yeah, it's tough out there, and that's a really cool program. I hadn't heard of that before, so thank you so much for sharing that.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
All right, my next policy question. I'm a Pacific Northwest native, so I had to ask a question about the environment and climate change, and I did, especially because our ecosystems play such a big role when it comes to fighting the effects of climate change. So I want to hear from you why protecting those ecosystems is important to you, and what sorts of policies you hope to champion. Um,
Yeah, sure. The reason it's important to me is a little bit selfish, in that I have children, and my children have friends, and I want all of them to have an amazing earth to live, work, and play on into their futures.
mhm,
And I remember years ago hearing about climate change, and the reaction was, eh, it was no big deal. And we're getting to the point where we can't shrug it off anymore, nor do I want to. And I believe it's a responsibility of everyone on the planet, but especially elected officials, to take action around climate change. And so, we have done a lot of work at the city to make sure that we're preserving green spaces. We have an award-winning Parks and Rec department. We have Jackson Bottom Wetlands, for example, which is just a gorgeous space that could have been developed, and we said no, let's keep it natural. So just as an example. And then we've taken steps as a city as well. So we're working to electrify our fleet. We supported the home energy score, which uh, says that home sellers have to have their dwelling assessed, and a home energy score is assigned. And so when people move into that dwelling, they understand not only how much does the house cost, but how much does it cost for utilities. And so that incentivizes sellers to make improvements necessary so we can have efficient heating and cooling in the houses. So that's just a couple of examples of the things that we're doing. But I'm really proud of the work that we've done, and there's always more work to do. And we all have to do it together. And I think that's the tough part of climate change, is that one city could do a lot of work around it, preserving trees, preserving green spaces, doing a home energy score, um, electrifying their fleet. But other cities don't necessarily do that, nor in some cases can they afford it.
mhm.
So, working in collaboration with those cities to make sure that we partner and get them what they need, if we can do that, and make sure we all do the lift of climate action.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, all right. One more question for you. I'm a queer woman
Just
who grew
one?
up. Just one. No, okay. I have two more actually. I have two more,
Okay.
but this is my last. Like this is my selfish question.
Mm,
I'm a queer woman who grew up in a military family, so
sure.
so your story just resonates with me.
Mm.
Just as a queer person, as somebody who grew up in the military, and just really, that's a hell of a job. So thank you so much for your service. But I admire your commitment to equity and inclusion, and I would love to hear more about that commitment and how that affects your leadership style, and why you think representation is important across all marginalized communities.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, I think belonging is, to me, it's at the center. And I know what it's like to be set aside. I know what it's like to be um, not taken seriously. I know what it's like to be the only woman in the room. I know what it's like to be the only lesbian in the room, and I can't say anything.
Mhm.
When I was in the military, I served under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy under the Clinton era, which basically said you can be gay in the military, but you can't be gay. You can't talk about it. You can't date. You can't come to events. You can't be out. And so, that's a tough thing. And so while um, when I think about people who are struggling with other reasons that they're marginalized, whether it's however they're marginalized, whether it's race or skin color or an accent that they have or whatever that causes someone to treat them differently, um, while I may not have their experience, I know what it's like to be set aside. I know what it's like to be marginalized. And so that's my motivation is that I don't want anybody in Hillsboro, I don't want anybody anywhere to feel like that. And I know how I felt and how I had to be closeted and quiet in order to keep my job. And so it's very important to me in that sense. And I think the city has taken a lot of great steps around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We have just last night we were talking about how we um, as a city can qualify businesses that are women owned, minority owned, or veteran owned to make sure that they qualify and can be in the mix and be considered for contracts with the city.
Mhm.
Whereas normally it would be really hard for those businesses who are fledgling in many cases, trying to make it, to a larger business situation, and the larger businesses just gobble up all the contracts. And so I'm really proud of that work that we've done. And there's more to go. We've also changed our hiring practices. We've changed how the city employees are being briefed and trained, all of those things. And I think that makes a difference. And I am proud of the council that I serve on because it's important to
Mhm.
all of us, and that is something special. I've talked to other city councilor colleagues in other cities, and it is not unanimous in many cases. And so to be on a city council where it is diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging is unanimously supported is very important to me. And representation matters. To be able to look up and see yourself there is really important. And I didn't even really appreciate it until it was in my first term. It was right before COVID. It was 2019, and I don't know. I was at an event somewhere, and a mom comes up to me and she said, "Hey, thank you for serving." And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
It was a quick thing. And she says, "No, no, no. Thank you for serving openly." And I was like, "Oh, of course." You know, Thanks for saying something.
Mhm.
And then I clearly wasn't getting it. And she kind of took my arm. She's like, "No, uh, you've meant a lot to my son. My son is still alive because you serve openly."
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and she was like holding my arm. And I was like, "Oh." And I
Oh,
was like, "How is he now?" And she's like, "He's doing great. He's getting help, etc." But she went on to explain that she was able to point to me when he was having a particularly rough day, um, and say, "It will get better. You can be out. You can be open. You had a tough day today, but look at this person." And that was the first time it ever dawned on me that I was a role model and I was a representative. I mean, I knew it like on paper,
sure.
but that was the first when that mom came over to me. That was the first time it was like, oh, right. And so we talked a little bit more, but that was a great reminder of that. And so whether it's a veteran, a woman, a lesbian, whatever it is, I think representation is important. And, we have different people on council, which is exactly good. It's the way it should be, different representatives on council representing different walks of life and different life experiences. And I want to continue to diversify council and make sure that everyone can look at council and see themselves represented.
That's an incredible answer. That
Oh, good.
and you crushed it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just you clearly like lead with so much with so much heart and empathy,
Mhm.
but also logically too. And you can see that just in a lot of your answers, like the experiences that you've had have given you a lot of empathy to be able to help others, and that's I, it's really cool. I'm a little bit
Thanks.
at a loss for words. That was a beautiful story.
Thanks.
That was yeah.
I try, something else that you should know is that I talk to people a lot about serving on council.
Mhm.
I've talked to Indigenous people, BIPOC, Black people, Latina, letting them know what it's like. Um, and I've heard some people say, I can't, my kids are too young, or I can't this, or I can't that. But I'm trying to close that gap between, that's not for me, and oh, that actually is for me.
Mhm.
And so I'm hoping these conversations come to fruition in future elections where people say, okay, it's my time now. My kids are older. I can run now.
Way to
Yeah.
pay it forward, you know?
Well, I think it's my responsibility.
Yeah. I love that. Is there anything else that you want to chat about? Anything we haven't covered that you'd like your constituents to know about you?
Um, that I feel like I've been tested. I'm a tested leader. I I have been through a lot in the military and in corporate and in also in the social impact sector as well, to say that I can function under pressure. I know what it's like. And I can still take measured and deliberate decisions, or make measured and deliberate decisions based on the information I have at the time. And I think that's something that people want in their leader. And so I wanted people to know that I have experience there. And I'm also honored to receive the Washington County Democrats endorsement. I'm honored to be able to even just run, to be able to represent. And so I hope to do so proudly, and I hope to do right by the Dems.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to our interview with Beach Pace. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to make sure you're registered to vote. You can check on your voter registration at vote.gov. And don't forget to make a plan to vote. Election day is Tuesday, November 5th. Thank you for listening.